Hello, Giants fans. Welcome to Giants Baseball 101. I'm Gabe Vaughn, your host. I'm sorry for the delay in posting this week's video. My original intention was to do it every Monday night, but with as busy as I've been and all that, I realized that I would need more time to really think through it this time, as well as to wait and see if there were any updates. Nothing big has happened so far, even as we round the corner of the month and head into December. The Giants have just made a couple of minor league signings. Cole Waits, who was non-tendered after pitching for them in what was essentially a swingman role in which he underperformed. They have now re-signed to a minor league deal, but due to his injury, he's expected to miss the entire 2024 season. So as of right now, that's a very small impact signing, probably only done because they could bring him back into the organization as well as not. And just we would have to wait until at least 2025 to actually see if he has any prospect value. Yasniel Diaz was also signed. He had one big league at bat in 2022. I forget with what team exactly, but he had just one big league at bat in which he struck out and spent the entire 2023 season in the minor leagues, did not get called up. Now he's getting his chance with the Giants. And I mean, it kind of seems from this that the Giants are still pursuing their kind of organizational ideal of signing guys who have just either not had a lot of success at the big league level or run into trouble and then trying to fix them. I know that is something that the Giants try to specialize in a lot, in fixing players that kind of even ruin themselves or else just not had success at all. And I mean, don't get me wrong, that the Giants have had some success on certain of those players, and it's beyond the scope of this video to really go into all that, but it's been something the Giants have been able to do to a degree. But I mean, also I think we just have to realize that in the overall picture, it hasn't always produced consistent results. I mean, it's not the way the Giants can build their roster, honestly, and it is certainly no substitute for adding superstar talent. So what concerns me right now is that this is becoming a substitute for what the Giants really need to be thinking about, and that it's reflecting their mindset right now. Now, adding guys on minor league deals, I don't think in general that actually does significant damage, even when you are just taking a chance on a guy, because minor league contracts, they're the most low risk thing you could have, essentially. Just bring a guy into your organization, give him a shot. A bad outcome comes when you commit to giving a guy a bunch of playing time in the big leagues, a guy who was signed to a minor league deal, and then he doesn't perform well, and yet he's your starting guy at whatever position, or he's occupying a spot in the rotation or bullpen that he shouldn't be. That's where you run into trouble. But just in general, at the time of a minor league signing, it's not an area where I could say that the Giants have really gone wrong. But I'm just afraid that it might be reflecting the fact that their mindset is still in the wrong place, and they think they can run this off of trying to fix people instead of signing the available talent that's out there. And another indication of this is maybe it's a little more subtle, but it has to do with what they're saying right now about filling in the shortstop position after Brandon Crawford's departure, which I didn't hear exactly what's happening with Crawford now, whether he's retiring or what he's doing. But this thing now, this hole at shortstop, whether because it really is the Giants main focus right now, and it's like become something new, or because they just needed to write an article to keep fans engaged. It is making the main headline on the San Francisco Giants website. That the headline is, what are they gonna do to fill the hole at shortstop? And it's pretty obvious this comes about from the departure of Brandon Crawford. And I mean, fans, don't get mad, please. I want Crawford in the Hall of Fame as much as anybody for the great player that he's been, but I'm sure we all know after he's aged, his performance did decline, and it declined to a very negative rate, and that really showed itself this year a lot. So I'm saying something that, I mean, it might sound unpopular, and yet I'm saying it anyway for clarity. There always was a hole at shortstop. There's not something new. Ever since the Giants failed to sign a free agent shortstop, and that didn't have to be the position. If they got Aaron Judge in the outfield, at least gotten some kind of super high impact bat in the lineup. I mean, Judge obviously would have been ideal, but we're focusing on shortstops right now for the sake of the conversation. Had the Giants signed a free agent shortstop, preferably Trey Turner, I mean, Carlos Correa, though he had a better season than Crawford by, I think, almost twice as good of a season, then it would be different. But due to their failure to do that, there has always been a hole at shortstop in 2023. Because Brandon Crawford was there, but he was underperforming. That's just a fact. It's not a new crisis that we're getting into. Just because Crawford was the longtime great at shortstop, it really doesn't negate the fact that his performance did decline, and where the Giants couldn't bring in good performance at just enough all around the diamond to get them to the playoffs. That's where they failed, and that's the point I've always kept coming back to, and I'm just going to keep coming back to, because that needs to be the goal of the 2024 season. It needs to be the total goal to make the playoffs. So this is another way in which it could show. I'm not saying it does necessarily, but it could show that the Giants still kind of have the wrong mindset, in that they now suddenly realize there's some kind of hole to fill at shortstop, whereas the way Crawford actually performed in 2023, I'm not so convinced that it was irreplaceable within the organization, or with someone that you could maybe even claim off waivers. Now, I understand some of those guys would perform with the wins above replacement number of under 0, but I mean, I'm not so certain that Crawford's performance all along in 2023 was actually irreplaceable. So there's a hole at shortstop, but I'm just not sure it opened up now. And if the Giants are taking it that way, then that could indicate that all they're doing is just focusing on getting guys who can play positions and just hope they're going to be solid, instead of being willing to actually take some financial risks and jump to the top. When they get distracted on these kinds of issues, it really has negative results for them, and I feel like that happened last offseason quite a bit. Now, in terms of like who's going to play shortstop for them in 2024, I mean, I do think that Marco Luciano is a great option for sure, and it's just that should in no way deter them from looking to the free agent market. Although I think they just have to go with whatever they can get there, and I'm not. I don't really have my eyes on any particular defensive position. I know it's. I mean, in terms of defense, I would actually have more confidence that they can kind of get that out of their organization, even after kind of the results that we've seen just on the field in general. Because you think about it, why is that, or at least how is it perceived to be in the minds of most Giants fans? Well, it seems to be because a lot of players are getting old on the Giants, and there's a strong link to that, and the kind of defensive issues that they've been having. So you can see why I would actually have some reason to believe that might be an issue, and particularly with defense being, there are two things about it. It's probably more consistent from year to year than maybe a player's hitting ability, because that's the kind of thing it is. Whether you like it or not, and whether you think it should apply to hitting and pitching, I think just of the three things, defense is probably the most consistent. And this also applies to guys moving up. And I think you play good defense in the minors, it's more likely, and I think just more generally practical to expect that among the general pool of players, it's going to translate to the big leagues. It's more certain to do that than a player's hitting. Even if a guy's like crushing it in the minors, you come up to the big leagues and really struggle. Just he's adjusting to a new level. But I feel like defense, for what it is just, I mean, a guy's, it's an area where I feel like a guy's kind of doing the same thing a bit more. And yeah, there's a way in which the tougher competition thing still applies if you get a guy coming to the big leagues. I'm not denying that, but I think that if a guy's got a good glove, it's probably of the statistics you can measure just between defense, hitting, and pitching, I think defense is the one where it's just, you can, for the most part, expect consistency and probably the greatest level of predictability between a guy's performance at the lower levels and at the big leagues. I think they're just better able to keep up what they start as they go from level to level. So for this reason, I just think it's more likely they can cover ground defensively from their organization than necessarily getting an impact bat. And I mean a consistently impactful bat. That's where I feel like if they can bring someone up on the opening day roster, if I see Marco Luciano make the opening day roster and he starts killing it, that's going to be great. But I think even in such a scenario, we'd have to be prepared for the obvious possibility that he might cool off in the middle of the season. Do you realize even Patrick Bailey, as hot as he was, for the stint that he was hot, he cooled off at the season's end. It's just, sometimes it is the way with these prospects. That's a thing that you've got to accept. Giants have to sign, I would say they get a starter, and I mean a real high-end quality starter, as well as a super impact bat. At least two superstar free agents to cover both of those areas, and adding a third, like 3 or 4, obviously, would be ideal. So to sum everything up, I hope the Giants aren't getting distracted from that right now, and I don't want to read too much into what's going on, but they've given reasons for concern in the past that have come to fruition, and I'm just saying, I guess time only will tell if the extension to Farhan Zaidi was a big blunder or not. Thank you for watching. This has been Giants Baseball 101. Please subscribe if you haven't. Also, please leave your questions and comments. You know where to do it. I'll see you next time on Giants Baseball 101.